Helena, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's Tenuta Biserno?
Tenuta di Biserno.
See?
It sounds a lot better
When she said it, it's great. Could you say it again?
Tenuta di Biserno.
Oh, gosh, that sounds so good. So, here you are,
Yeah.
in Florida, all the way from Tuscany.
Yep. I got here and I got to Florida last night, yeah.
And really, you didn't start in Tuscany from what I had read.
Nope. I am from Sweden originally. Studied chemical engineering. Started tasting wine once I graduated. Started tasting wine and started reading all about wine chemistry, and traveled to every wine region I could get to on a budget, and then decided that it was time to resign, and I went to Australia and did my first vintage in Australia many years ago.
Who was that with?
Yalumba Wines.
Oh, Yalumba.
Yeah.
But someone else went through Yalumba that we know. I can't remember.
There's quite a few who've been through Yalumba, I would say, but they've got great winemakers and great winery.
The Y Series wines. And
the wines are great.
Oh yeah, always been good.
Yeah, and super affordable. Great for the value.
I started off as a cellar hand, cleaning tanks and pulling houses and pumping wine, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to start from zero.
Well, that's probably the best way to start.
Australia and then New Zealand. I was offered a job as an assistant winemaker and spent 3 years in New Zealand. A lot of Sauvignon Blanc in Marlborough. And then I went back to Europe and southern France. Quite a few long short-term contracts. Did a year at the Faculty of Enology, and then I heard about this project that Lodovico Antinori had. New project in Tuscany, and I applied for the job in 2004, and here I am 18 years later.
Wow, really?
That's
that
awesome.
Quick. Man, bless you.
So, take us through this for a second. You have your career, and this is a second career for you. Where did you decide along the way, hey, wine is what I'm going to do? Well,
it was when I tasted so much, and with associations in Sweden, and read so much about wine chemistry and about making wine. I thought, I can't read anymore. I need to do it. And I want to learn how to make wine, how to make great wine, especially red wines. And I realized it was going to be lifelong process about learning how to make good wine. So that's why I decided that I had to fulfill this dream. I didn't want to find myself. I'm way past 40 now, but I was saying to myself then that I don't want to sit there when I'm 40 and say, why didn't I do what I wanted to do? So that's why. It was a mental thing. I said, I have to do it. I have to try.
Well, good.
Otherwise I'll go insane if I don't try.
So how many years have you been with Biserno?
18. 2004. First vintage. First real vintage.
So 18 years is a long time. Like, we've been here for 22 years. We were all in the wine business, long before that.
It's a different life. It was a different
back then.
Time, yeah.
Same thing here. Yeah. Do you still have that passion? Is it still?
Yeah.
You still get excited in the morning.
It's different now. It's different now. It's there's still that. When the harvest comes, it's the best part of the year. The harvest, as difficult as it is, and you have to make so many decisions every day. And in the middle of vintage, you just say, "Why am I doing this?" But at the same time, it's exciting. It's something new every year. Every vintage is different, and when vintage comes, it's sort of yes, this year, what's going to happen, and so it is the most exciting time of the year. So during vintage, I'm full of energy. Long days, 7 days a week, but it's energizing to do the vintage. Bottling, which we're doing in this period, is less exciting. so when you ask him, I'm passionate about making wine, not so much about getting it to bottle. It's the best part, because you actually put away the wine into bottle, and once it's in bottle, you don't have to worry about that one anymore. Well, not so much anyway. It's out of your hands then.
Yes.
But at the same time,
your baby's going to college.
Yeah. So
now you're just waiting to see how he does in college.
Yeah. And these wines that we're tasting, like the 2019 vintage, for example, we bottled that this time last year, and it's only the last few months that I've discovering what the wine is in bottle. Before I knew what it was in tank, and oh yeah, it's pretty good. But now I'm seeing what it is in bottle, and that's the next step and exciting step to see how the wine develops in bottle. So
What would you recommend we start with?
the Insolio,
Insolio.
this one here, yeah.
Right. And this is, all these ones are from Maremma.
Yeah, from the coast,
Right,
from
from the
up
coast.
Alta Maremma, as they said. It's so the upper part. If you go Pisa, Livorno, it's, I speak in kilometers, so 50, 60 kilometers south of Pisa, right on the coast. From the estate, which is on the foothills, on the hills. On a clear day, you can see Corsica, the northern part of Corsica. You can see Elba, so it's really on the coast, basically on the coast.
And just for our customers or people who are watching that, because people go to Tuscany, where do they go? They go to Florence,
Oh,
right?
yeah, of
They
course.
So how far from Florence?
It would take an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Ish.
And it's a beautiful location, right? I mean, it's very, lots of produce is grown there. Lots of grapes are being grown there now.
Yeah.
It's a beach community also, right? There's
Oh,
a lot of
yes.
good beaches there.
Oh yes, very much so. That's what Italians like to do in the summer. They like to spend the whole day on the beach,
Yeah.
and that's what they do. Plus, usually Germans and Dutch come, those who don't have much sea. So yeah, it's a beautiful part of Italy, of Tuscany.
So let me ask you, before we get into tasting these, and these are all new wines for me. I haven't tasted them
Okay.
before. As you coming in, you are not Italian. You're not coming from Italy. There's kind of been this change of guard, right? There's two different styles of thinking with Italian winemaking.
Mhm.
There's a very old school style, and then there's kind of the new guard. Where do you fall into the fold
Well,
there?
I mean, I come across it as, and I am humble. I always say it's a huge team effort, but I'm trying to make the wines that the boss wants.
Sure.
And, I'm not making the wines for myself. These are not my wines. At the same time, of course, there is part of me in these wines,
Yeah.
and the way I work and the way I like to work. We're trying to make elegant wines, as in not too big and powerful. I mean, Biserno is powerful, but we're trying to make them elegant. Finesse rather than sort of fruit bombs or something.
Sure.
I do like to preserve the fruit. The wines spend time in barrel. This first one, not so much. Only part of the blend spends time a few months in used oak, but I like to see the fruit in there. I don't want the wine to be tasting or smelling of oak. So we're trying to preserve the fruit to treat the wines as best we can, and
Showcase
guide the
food.
wines along,
Sure.
and try somewhere to make the place speak, the famous
location,
terroir,
yeah.
whatever that is.
That makes
but
sense.
yeah, it's a question of working with the vineyard manager. He works so hard in the vineyard to produce great grapes, and then we decide together when to pick what, etc. And then it's a question of treating the grapes as best you can, and get the most out of each batch.
Absolutely.
With in lots of wineries also now in Maremma, not always, but now there's lots more people producing wine there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as your case production, what is your case production on these wines?
Yeah, I'm not good at case production, but I've
For bottles
the last few
or-
days I've learned something, and
Ah.
I've calculated something. Speaking in 12 bottle cases, that's
Yes.
what you do now.
Yes, yes.
This one, the first one, would be just somewhere under 30,000 cases.
And that's for the world.
That's for the
Globally.
world.
Yeah.
That's our biggest volume. It's not a big volume, but it's our biggest volume wine. The next one is less than half. Yeah, quite a bit less than half. And that one is again way below in volume of the middle wine. So total case production, I haven't done that
Tiny.
calculation.
It's small.
But it's
Yeah, it's small.
it's small, and the way we work, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of manual work in there. So for us, it's big, but it's small.
Absolutely. Well, they're very high quality wines across the board,
trying
and
to.
that's very hard to maintain with larger case production wines.
Yeah.
This first one is very elegant.
It's
Yeah.
made to be fruity more than complex or anything like that. It's bottled less than a year after harvest. So this 2020 was bottled in June last year. So 10 months after harvest. Part of the blend spends time, a few months in used oak barrels, but the rest is in steel. And it's made to be. You can enjoy it soon after bottling. Basically,
Sure.
It's always released very soon after bottling, too soon sometimes, but that's a nice problem. And then it keeps and it can cellar for a few years, but it's not made to be put away for 10 years and then find this wonderful wine. It's not made that way. It's made to be enjoyed quite young.
And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, especially in Italy specifically. There's this generational divide, I guess, where, for 6-7 generations, it's been made a certain way, and then, within the last couple, the kids are kind of seeing that, hey, people are the rest of the world are wanting to drink these wines a little sooner than, a 20-year-old Barolo or something, right? So you're making them a little more approachable now. What I take away from this, it's definitely a younger wine. It's meant to be drank now, obviously, especially with a nice decant.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that this would continue to age out for the next 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
wonderfully. And I think that that's what you're seeing a lot of people, and especially you said you're in with the first vintage, right? So that's 18 years at this point. So it's not like a big multi-generational winery.
No.
So you're taking a much newer approach to the winemaking.
Yeah, and modern wines are the consumer doesn't. Most consumers don't have room to put the bottles away. The wines need to be approachable, or you need to be able to enjoy them straight away. Then they should be able to keep and cellar for a number of years. And Biserno, who knows how that long, but easily 10 years, easily 15 years. You get a different wine after 10, 15 years. But you can't make wines these days. Well, most producers look at making wines that can be enjoyed quite young, but then can last for some time.
For a long period. So long as the acid's in check and...
Acid, fruit, to have the fruit in there, and
I think, for better or for worse, I think the American palate kind of drove that a little bit. We don't have the patience to wait.
No.
I think for across the board, right? People want to drink their wines young.
They do.
And that's why things like, the Camus family and the Wagner family, they blew up because those are meant to drink very young. And those are big cabs that people want now. And I think that market, I don't know how the American market is across the world, but I would imagine it's probably a larger sharehold right behind China, if I'm right. And that kind of dictates the way people are making wine, and especially in Bordeaux. Bordeaux has a big
There's
change
been a little
too.
swing there, even though there's still some traditional, styles being made there. I like the way you dump. Oh, you're not dumping your spin. I forgot. But I think there has been a big change in the wine business where we think about the old world wines are starting to come around, and you even see Italians. I've seen some Italians use new French oak. It's not all neutral oak anymore. And I do love concrete, and I do like that method.
Yeah.
And you have what is the eggs now and the
concrete I think is a great material, and I'd love to have some concrete tanks. We don't have the space at the moment, but it'd be nice to have some in. I believe in the thick walled concrete. It's good for the wine.
So how many varietals are you producing at this moment?
So it's Syrah. Okay, the first wine was a blend of Syrah and the Bordeaux varieties. So Syrah plus Cabernet Franc, Merlot, a bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, and a touch of Petit Verdot. So that makes it 5 varieties. That's what we... in Solio, the first wine is the only one with Syrah between 30 and 40%. The other wines are Bordeaux blends, so 5 varieties. Plus we are starting to make a tiny bit of white wine with Vermentino, but it's not anything that we...
And the El Pino, what's in the El Pino?
El Pino is a Bordeaux blend.
It's just Bordeaux blend.
That particular vintage, 2019, has a bit more Merlot. And then comes Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot. So the 4. Pino Biserno gets 12 months in oak. Some new oak, but more 1-year-old barrels. It's a wine. It's not a second wine of the estate. It's a wine in its own right, made to its style. A little bit easier than the Biserno perhaps, and more approachable when young.
My, did you try that?
I haven't yet. No.
Holy cow, that is beautiful.
So while we're on the topic, let's kind of talk about a little bit why these Bordeaux varietals do so well there. This is a big topic. It's something that really changed what Tuscan wines are.
You're drinking a Bordeaux blend from Tuscany.
Yeah.
You know, you think, oh, it's Sangiovese, right? I mean, you gotta think
I
that.
get that question. So no Sangiovese? No.
Yeah.
Sangiovese. I mean, it started with Sassicaia. I won't go through that history because it's better if it comes from Sassicaia. But it was Sassicaia back a few decades ago that family planted some vines for house consumption, making wine for house consumption. And then in the 60s, someone said that you should commercialize, you should start selling that wine, it's good. And that was the late 60s when Sassicaia, they started sort of putting Sassicaia on the market, and it showed that Cabernet Sauvignon does well in that area. And then others came after. I mean, Ludovic Antinori founded Ornellaia in the early 80s, and then one after the other, and they just saw that it worked well. The soils, the climate to some extent. I mean, you've got it gets warm, but there's nice sea breezes, cooling effects, at least keeping it not too hot around the grape, grape clusters, the grape bunches. Yeah. So I guess it's what often happens. It's someone starts and it works, and then others continue and it works.
Absolutely.
Sangiovese perhaps doesn't show as well as these varieties on that coast, so people focus on these varieties. It's as simple as that. It's
This is a serious
because
bottle
it works.
right here.
It does. It works well. And like you said, you can argue that it works better than Sangiovese. But it was a major shift that happened at some point in time. The climate is perfect for these varietals, and the soil is perfect for that. How many different soil types do you have in Maremma?
Many. Someone else said in that area, don't know how many, but
Sure.
a big number.
Okay.
I mean, the estate where Biserno was chosen, it's outside Bolgheri, it's in Libona, just north of Bolgheri.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Ludovic Antinori who laid his eyes on with expert friends on this property, and saw the potential in the soils and everything to make great wine, and he was interested in Cabernet Franc and focusing a bit more on Cabernet Franc. So when they started planting in 2002, I mean, we've got Cabernet Sauvignon, we've got Merlot and Petit Verdot, but there was a bit more focus on planting the Cabernet Franc in the best soils for Cabernet Franc.
When you started 18 years ago, was this the the direction that the winery was heading? Was in these Bordeaux varietals?
I mean, it was Bordeaux varietals.
Yeah.
That was the direction, and but it's been work in progress all these years, and the first few years we thought we were making pretty good wines, but age and the vine age does count, and we've seen how the first few years, the wines were good, but the tannin, the depth, everything has improved. I mean, we all were learned. So the team is pretty much the same people. The vineyard manager's the same. The staff in the winery, being the cellar supervisor, he's been there since 2005. So the team has learned along the way, and working together, you sort of try to improve everything you do as you go, and this is the result, and there's still a whole lot to do.
Well, I don't know. You've done a really good job.
Thank
in this,
you, but yeah,
2019, I believe it is, right?
So yeah,
it is
that's,
19,
I mean, it's nice to see them. It's nice to see them now, 18 years later, and thinking, yeah, okay.
And then the third wine.
Biserno.
That's the label. That's the
estate wine.
That's the estate wine.
The smaller volume.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be top quality.
Mm-hmm. So is that your best barrels from what you and the staff are choosing?
Well, it's basically batches,
Mhm.
vineyard blocks that perform well and vinified, and after vintage you see the potential in certain batches, and it's usually certain vineyard blocks that are able to produce wine for Biserno. So when you put wine to barrel, you try to get it right, and use the barrels that we think are the best for the style of wine and for the wine, and you put those batches to certain barrels, and then you see, and then a few months later you might think, okay, yeah, maybe
You might
that
switch
batch,
something out.
yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of decisions all the time, but yeah, trying to work out what the best batches are, and then the blending happens over a year basically. We start looking at it. I have to mention that we work with Michel Roland, who is well known in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
He's been with us since, because he worked with Ludovico Antinori at Ornelai, and Ludovico Antinori wanted Michel Roland to come and work with us. So I worked with him for 18 years now with blending, and he comes and looks at things and looks at blends, and then might not do them in the winery straight away. Next time he comes, yeah, this works. Oh yeah, you can get it done in the winery, and so forth. So it's a process.
And he still comes like every year and just sits
Yeah, he
down.
comes.
And,
Yeah.
Do you ever have to tell him something?
Well, I might tell him that batch should be good. Please have a look at that batch again.
That's a smart woman.
But he might. I mean, he's often right, but I might say that's not performing today. That's looking off today. But yeah, no, he's a great guy, and he knows what he does. It's amazing what he does, and how he finds the blends and how it works.
And again, is this Bordeaux varietal?
Yes, it is
No, you can't.
the four varieties: Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit, Verdot, in that order.
And
for that vintage.
oak regimen in this wine?
15 months. So the different batches get put to barrel usually before Christmas, November, between late October, November, early December, and then it gets racked and put back to barrel. But last time would be in March, around March, and then bottled in June. We've just gone. The 2020 has just gone to that bottle. Yeah.
You said Cab Franc here?
Yeah, the more Cab Franc than the other varieties. It's roughly 40%, I think. But
Yeah.
it depends on. It's very much vintage dependent, and what works, what the percentages become.
Well, the Cab Franc definitely shows really well here.
It's nice.
It's very nice. Just on the nose, I mean, you're getting a ton of bell pepper. It's exactly what you want from this wine.
It's I love working with Cabernet Franc, but it's easy but not easy. The tricky part is to really pick at the right time, to not have the too herbaceous side, but not for it to lose its
Where you
freshness,
lose that it's there, yeah.
and it goes the other way. So it's a nice variety. I like working with it, and every time doing vintage, it's always that variety that sort of, oh yeah, that's nice. Merlot is a bit more tricky, and yeah. It's a lovely variety.
As far as 21s are concerned, as a vintage, how was it in Maremma?
It was good. It was really good. Nothing too extreme until early September, and then we had a week, 8 days, 10 days of wind. All of a sudden, we hadn't started picking a week into September or something. We had this drying wind for quite a few days, which concentrated the grapes a bit. The sugars sort of went up. But they're looking very good, and but it was just that, okay, let's wait a few more days, and then that wind concentrated everything. But they're looking. It wasn't like 2017 when production went down. It was hot and dry, and it was something like 20% less production in 2017. The wines, we thought the Merlots were picked before the end of August, which is we normally start picking Merlot a week into September. And we thought that the tannins would be difficult and everything. The wines are really good despite everything. But 21 was different. It was good. It was balanced. The vines were happy. The grapes looked great, and then that wind came, which sort of okay. But it went well in the end.
Too
so
early to tell, really, with the wines in bottle.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only we're only just starting to bottle in Sauvignon, 21, and the other wines will be another year almost before we bottle. So we've started looking at blends. In Sauvignon 21 was funny. A few months ago, I thought, oh, okay. But I'm really liking it now. The in Sauvignon 21 just before sending it to bottle. Sometimes wine, I have to be convinced. The wines have to convince me, and in Sauvignon 21 has convinced me that it's good.
Oh, great.
So yeah, they're looking good. But it's now that I'm seeing the real quality of the 19s in bottle. Yeah.
So as that drying wind comes through and it's concentrating the sugars, are you expecting a little bit higher ABV on those wines?
ABV being
alcohol by volume.
I thought I meant, but I wasn't sure.
I mean, I've noticed you're 14.5 across the board here.
Yeah, it's hard to be below. We try to keep this one at 14 rather than 14.5.
Is that 14 over there?
Yeah, it should be 14. Yeah, on the label. So it's a struggle, but we try to with the blending and getting the balance to keep them below 15.
And you're a little warmer there where you're at.
Yeah, I mean it is warm. It's easy. It would be easy to make 15.5, 16.
Well, naturally, right? And just on any given year, and then with that drying wind coming through, I would imagine.
It didn't dry out everything, but it went from looking so perfect to we'll fix it. Well, it's fine, but it's basically farming, and that's what farming is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Weather, you can't control weather, but we got a bit of rain, so the later varieties, Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon, we got a bit of rain, and that freshened things up, and so.
I like that you said farming.
It's
really all wine is farming.
It's basically
right?
what it is
It
in the
is,
end.
it
You
is.
think it's something special. I mean, it is a different kind of farming, but in the end, it's growing something and it's weather dependent, and you can't control weather.
Letting Mother Nature speak, and with a little bit of our own little hands
Yeah,
involved.
yeah.
In
You're
there,
putting your
right?
fingerprint on it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're putting your fingerprint on the year. So, these wines are beautiful. I thank you so much for sitting down with us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. And
When they come in, we'll have them.
yeah, absolutely.
We'll maybe even pre-sell them. It just depends on how many we can get. As I stare at the guys in the back of the camera, saying if we can get some quantities of this, because these are beautiful wines, very just super silky and just beautiful wines. I think you'd be shocked to tell that these are Bordeaux varietals done in Tuscany. They're just lovely, and I'm so glad that you came in and joined us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
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 Thank you.